So when we first started training with Tuangahe in the 70s on stick work, it was very common to power everything through full side steps with the hips. And by that I mean, our basic strikes were diagonals on the downward line, diagonals on the upward line, and horizontals. And I'm turning, if I don't want to talk to the camera, just demonstrate, the turn would be a full 180-degree turn. So if I'm facing the opponent here, I'm turning the body, 180 degrees, so I'm facing you. And in the backhand, I had my back to the camera. That's to develop an understanding of plyometric force in the body and the sequential force. If you notice, when I strike, the foot moves first, then the hips, that whole muscular band around the oblique and abdominal area and the lower back. That stretching loads up the upper body. And then you have the very last thing that actually moves is the weapon. It's a stick, you need more power to get the job done. People can take a huge amount of damage before they instantly stop fighting. So you need a lot of power with that, right? So in my transition classes for sword work, what I've been teaching is not the basic footwork. I'm assuming these guys usually come to me after many, many years of basic military training. And when they transition to sword or even advanced stick work, what I have them do is, instead of starting with your chest square to the opponent, I have people at a 45-degree angle to the opponent. And this gives you the advantage of, standing square, your center line is open, your whole front is open. And then even if you're standing to the side, like the way we learned Sagitas on the first set, that can open up the spine and kidneys. So a little safer version of that is 45 degrees to the target. And then what I have them do is something I call a half step. So on the side, full side step, your shoulders are going, if you start square, either 90 degrees, or if you're turning from a strike, 180 degrees, right? On the half side step, what I have people do is simply, I'm extending this so you can see the reach. I'm having people take the rear heel and slide it forward. That gives you more reach. It gives you, the ability to move your hips without taking your eyes off the bad guy, and gets you faster strikes. So if I'm going forehand and backhand here, I extend against my forehand, the backhand, I return to hip and heel back and cut the path to protect my path to me on the backhand strike. So forehand, backhand. And by this point in time, the student, because it's an intermediate or advanced student, should know how to internalize that hip rotation. So where a beginner really needs to sidestep fully to get power, they can just move that hip a little bit plyometrically and get that full force in there and full velocity. So that's kind of our transition thought when going from beginning to intermediate or even advanced stick work. So targeting different parts of the body also means you need to use different parts of your weapon. If it's just a straight symmetrical stick, Leo would have us hit small mobile items or flexible items, for instance, the opponent's weapon hand, with the last, half inch of the stick, because it's mobile. It's not, you're not going to get a crushing wound. You need velocity to hit, especially a moving hand at velocity and break a bone. You need that velocity, and the velocity comes, longer the lever, greater the leverage. In terms of speed, longer the lever, the greater the tip speed. So if you're hitting, say, a rib, which is flexible, then, that last inch or half inch makes a difference. That's why I think you see people in tournaments, they hit with the flat of the stick and they get, a big bruise, a stick hickey, but the ribs aren't broken. Where if they hit with, just the tip, you would get one broken rib. However, the reverse is true when you have a large, immobile target, for instance, a skull. There we would hit with one hand down from the stick, from the top of the stick, and coming in at more of a crushing wound. So you're coming in trying to crush the skull and compress the neck. So there, hitting at what physicists call the point of percussion of the weapon. That's where you have the most impact point. Um, the less flex and the least amount of vibration going back into your hand. That point of percussion does the most damage for a crushing wound. But you want to attack, big stationary targets with that, resistant targets. If you're going after a hand, especially a mobile hand, like it's your opponent's weapon hand that's swinging a stick at you or a weapon at you, then you want that last end of the stick. You want maximum velocity, and you're more likely to break a bone that way. Now, the type, when you go to swords, the type of sword you have is also going to make a difference in at what point of the sword you make contact with the target. So here's a Volpe's training machete, very classic machete shape. It has that rounded tip. You can find a point of percussion, especially with training tools that are not sharp. Flip it over and just tap, and you'll feel a point. It's usually at the widest point of the blade when you have a non-symmetrical edge, meaning that it gets wider at some point. You're going to find a point where it has the most impact. If you're moving your hand at the same amount of force, right in there. And that's usually at the widest point. And you can do it with, because this is dull, I can do it with the edge. There it is, right there. So if I was going for the collarbone, let's say, I would go and smack that collarbone. And the reason I'm actually going for the collarbone is these are very small bones, they're flexible. It's very easy to break them. And then under that is the subclavian artery and vein, but more importantly is the nerve that goes into the arm. So you can take out that arm function instantly if you can, cut that nerve. And obviously the collarbone attaches to the pectoral muscle, and the pectoral muscle gets strength, because it's attached to the collarbone. It brings the arm over. So anyway, so that's a tool like this of a machete-like weapon. The Penutes we first had as a Pekiti-Tirsia longsword were pictured like this, but the top has a clip point, almost like a Bowie knife. When we went to the short sword, Leo's grandfather's short sword was 1 cubit in length, and narrow here, and the top spread out wide up here. And he had us, instead of cutting the collarbones on our diagonal down, he had us hunting the heart. And it was very much almost like I'm hammering a spear into his heart the way we threw it. And it's just going into the heart. Now you can see with that cut off tip how that would really bite into the sternum. The sternum is not very strong bone, and penetrate into the heart that way. However, if you're using something, a fairly even width blade with, a long curved blade like this Volpe's training Shamshir, or a katana, you feel, I'll use a train, I can do the edge, hit with that, and you're going to feel where the point of percussion is. On this, it's right about here, close to, usually on these type of things, it's close to the middle. If it has a symmetrical spine, this has a double edge, false edge built into the back. So it's about one hand up from that, and you'll feel where the point of percussion is. So this is going to be used with a draw cut. So I make my cut hitting with the point of percussion, and then slash from there to get deeper into the body. So here's a look at the style of machete I think Leo's grandfather's short sword was based on. I've seen these called corn knives, sugarcane knives, variety of terms. But what Leo had was a flat tip, and then this red paint here is just to show a little concave surface. And on Leo's grandfather's sword, that concave surface, the idea of that was if you're hitting into a round bone, like in the arm or whatnot, the bones of the arm would act as a cutting board, and that concave surface would come in, let me do this way, would come in and chop more effectively and cut more muscle and tendons, ligaments, because they kind of curve around the bone a bit. But you can see, this is sharp, so I'm going to go to the end. The point of percussion on this is way out by the tip. So when he's talking about, hit with the last ½ inch, he's talking about a blade with this type of balance and configuration. So when we started training, the Panute was the common Pekiti-Tirsia sword. And then Leo went over to a Gunting when he started training the Philippine military. And this has a long straight blade on the cutting edge. The point of percussion, again, this is a dull aluminum trainer. I can get away with tapping my hand on the cutting edge, what's supposed to be the cutting edge. You can see it's right where the thickest part of the blade is. So for here, I would hack and break bone on the cutting edge, but then the draw cut is almost a pressure cut. You're pushing down to get maximum pressure, where, you know, something like the sham shear, you know, it would be a draw cut because of that curve. You are getting a good slice in here, and it's that curved surface is slicing through, you know, very much like a butcher's curved meat knife, and you're getting more of a true cutting edge cut with that, and not true draw cut, I should say. So not only is there a difference between beginners and advanced technique on strikes and cuts, but you have to make allowances for what type of blade shape you have. At least we do in Pekiti-Tirsia. Thank you.